I don't know if you were following this Patreon story or not. I covered it a few days ago and the video kind of tanked, so maybe people don't really care about Patreon anymore, but there were some pretty spicy claims made by a potential ex-employee. I'm unaware of the actual standards that Glassdoor, for example, this is a website where ex-employees of companies can leave reviews about working there. I don't know how rigorous they are about ex-employees, but there was one ex-employee who happened to leave a very spicy review. 1 star. Okay, benefits. Great opportunity to help creators on the world achieve their goals. Cons. We are being told specifically by management and executives not to take on content that is illegal or was reported as spicy in nature involving people who are not old enough, unless the PD makes contact with legal or we have a court order. When others try to inform management that there is an amalgamation of accounts that are selling spicy photos of what appear to be people are far too young, all concerns are dismissed. It's all about advocating for customers who are maps. This is in no way to run a company. This is no way to allow kids to get taken advantage of on the platform. Very interesting claim. Now, I watched an Instagram video the other day of a guy who had a bunch of these like famous Instagram accounts that had like hundreds of thousands of followers each. And each Instagram account was like basically kids posing. Nothing that probably would have broken Instagram terms of service, but clearly not right, if you know what I mean. And each one of these accounts also linked back to a Patreon account, which is where these claims came from. Now, as of yesterday, Patreon denies hosting the worst kind of content, we'll say, amid security team cuts. Now, here's the guy's video, actually, the Patreon problem version 2. It's worse than we thought. This is by Tizzy Entertainment, Tizzyent. He talks about having, Patreon is denying claims that the site is helping parents monetize spicy photos of their kids. Patreon refuted the claims amid more job cuts. What a coincidence. Last week, the platform laid off the 5 members of the security team. On Tuesday, Patreon announced it was slashing another 80 jobs, nearly 20% of their workforce, citing, quote, economic downturn. I don't know, Joe Biden says we're in the strongest economy ever in history. In all the time, everywhere in the whole world. The staff cuts to security prompted one critic on TikTok named, I'm not going to use his legal name, I'll say Tizzyent, who has 4.9 million followers, to claim that Patreon turned a blind eye to pictures that shouldn't appear on their platform. He also cited a Glassdoor review from an alleged former Patreon employee, which claims Patreon staff would avoid taking down this kind of content unless the PD were involved, which is the review I showed. However, Patreon says the claims are false. Wow, okay. Case closed. Quote, the disinformation stemmed from a single fraudulent claim on a job posting site, which onlookers inaccurately linked to small-scale staffing changes we made last week to our security organization. This has led to a conspiracy that Patreon knowingly hosts terrible content, it wrote in this blog post. Patreon says it has a zero tolerance for these type of photos. The company adds, we unequivocally forbid creators from funding content dedicated to non-consensual or spicy themes. Nevertheless, in May, a TikTok video, he uncovered at least 2 accounts on Patreon that were monetizing these type of photos of people who were too young to be in them. The parents of the kids have been promoting the photos on Instagram, which contains links to their Patreon account. Here's the video.
Evidence that there are some.
So if I go through here, it's an account like where they're taking all these photos and videos of their kids. And then each one of these, maybe this one has 75,000 followers. Another one had like 125,000 followers that he shows. And they both link back to Patreon accounts where you can get even more spicy photos. Now, I don't know if that means they're all the way, so to speak, like the worst kind of photos on the planet, or if it just means more. But certainly, I would say there's some weirdness. Like, You see, Instagram is promoting photo sets on Patreon that seem to be subscribed to by tons of adult men. He told PC Magazine, why would adult men be interested in seeing continuous images of people who are 10 in bikinis or miniskirts? One of these Patreon accounts is still active. The company didn't immediately respond to a request for comment about the account, but in Tuesday's blog post, Patreon said that anyone can report content that they may believe violates our guidelines. Another TikTok user, Sarah Adams, originally flagged one of the Patreon accounts as exploited back in February. At the time, Patreon told Adams it was reviewing the account, saying it had zero tolerance for this type of thing. She later reported that Patreon had restored access to the account. The reason was likely because the account's owner, the parent, is over 18. So the loophole that's being used here is allegedly, I'm going to be very careful here, is that the person who owns the Patreon account is these kids' parents. Now, I don't know if anybody on TikTok is able to actually confirm that. In a separate blog post, though, Patreon CEO Jack Conte downplayed the security team changes. We are, in fact, increasing our investment in security, he said, pointing to the upcoming partnerships with third-party firms to bolster cybersecurity. The 80 job cuts announced Tuesday will hit the company's marketing, partnership, and internal operational teams. In addition, Patreon is shutting down its offices in both Dublin and Berlin. The Berlin office in particular was focused on sales and marketing. However, the company's other office in Porto, Portugal, which was include teams devoted to customer support, trust, and safety, will remain in operation. I mean, Patreon is a garbage company run by garbage people, a leftist company, just like GoFundMe, where there's only essentially one truth, and it is the leftist kind of narrative of what is correct. There are communists that run Patreons and all this kind of stuff, but then if they have anybody who's hard right, not that I would support anything that they would say in particular, they get banned from the platform. And I'm sure these layoffs are completely unrelated, but what if they're not? I mean, you have a company here that, you know, this is, by the way, the fourth layoff in 3 years, right? Now, I get maybe they just outsourced their security team, which is essentially what they're saying they did. But 80 workers, nearly 20% of their staff at the San Francisco tech unicorn, Patreon leaves nearly 20% of its staff off. Well, the market is better. Creators who need financial support outside of traditional methodologies have used places like Subscribestar, or they use, like Tim Pool uses his own website. It's like timcast.com or whatever it's called, you know, to generate money. People are going kind of outside the traditional, well, I just have a Patreon. Now, most of the people who use Patreon are normies, but this all started when they banned Sargon of Akkad and many other right-wing figures, because not only did they leave, but then what happened was it forced other content creators to leave the platform as well. I talked to guys like Dankula and others that stayed on Patreon after Sargon got banned, and he said he lost a lot of backers who just left the platform altogether. Then you have guys like Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin going off to create locals. I don't know how much of a dent locals made. It seems like everybody in like Conservative Inc. uses locals. I don't. I use Subscribestar because, you know, they were the first. They were the first. Sorry, I've got the coof. They were they backed me. They helped onboard me from Patreon back when they banned me, and so I've remained loyal to them. It's interesting though. They said over the last 9 months, we've seen the tech industry and the whole economy change considerably. Jack Conte sent the message. Many of you have asked me about the layoffs, all hands meetings, and we've set out to tighten our focus. And I've said that layoffs would be the last resort. Today we're taking that step, and I'm deeply sorry to the kind, talented, creator-first people who will be leaving Patreon. In addition to the 80 people laid off Tuesday, the company confirmed a TechCrunch report from last week that 5 employees in the company's security department would also be laid off. As a result of these layoffs, 2 different offices will be closed down. Patreon, founded back in 2013 as a way to help creators and content creators through monthly subscriptions, in September 2020 it snagged a coveted unicorn status earning a $1.2 billion valuation in its funding round. Affected employees will receive 3 months severance plus an additional 2 weeks for every 6 months of employment. That's a nice severance. Are the two related? Well, one would certainly hope not, but I'm never going to feel bad about another woke crap tech company failing. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be interested to hear your comments in the comment section down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.